Okay, it's been a very busy morning, and I thought I would have time to prepare properly, and bris and phone calls and all different things going on, and I didn't have time to prepare the way that I wanted to about Avraham Avinu. So I'd like to share something from this week's parsha that will transition into our discussion of BECHIRA of free will and the struggles that a person has keeping things clear, as we pointed out last time. So in the beginning of the parsha this week, it's referring to the passing of our great matriarch Sarah Imenu. Sarah passes away, and the Torah tells us, "Vayiyu chaye Sarah," and these are the days of Sarah, or this is the life of Sarah. 127 years. Shnei chaye Sarah, these are the years in the life of Sarah. So it's a little bit problematic in grammar, since that we know that Hashem is a master of grammar. He should never have to say something twice in a verse that is not necessary. His ink costs a lot of money. And the holy ink of the Torah is used sparingly only to write what is necessary. So he already told us, this is the lifetime, this is the life of Sarah, 127 years old. Shnei chaye Sarah, these are the years in the life of Sarah. So the last three words, the years of the life of Sarah, are really extra. We already know that this is the life of Sarah. This is the life of Sarah. She was 127 years old. And by the way, these are the years in the life of Sarah. We know that already. So why does Hashem have to tell us a second time around, at the end of the verse, that this is the life, the years of the life of Sarah? So Rashi says something that is very hard to understand when we think about the context of these words. And Rashi says the following: why did the Torah repeat itself to tell us that these are the years in the life of Sarah? To teach us kulan shavin l'toiva, that all of the years in the life of Sarah were equally as good. That's what the Torah is coming to teach us. Now she's 127 years old. I'm sure that Hashem saw the first couple of parshas in the Torah before this. I'm sure that He knows that Sarah actually had probably one of the most difficult, challenging, miserable lives that any human being could walk around the face of the earth with. She was barren for 90 years. She begged and she pleaded and she davened, no children. For 90 years she didn't have a child. She was abducted once by the Pharaoh. She was abducted a second time by Avimelech. She and her husband were on the run. When they got comfortable one place, they had to go someplace else. When she finally does have a child, so all of the women said to her, "Oh, sure, you're a 90-year-old lady. You had a child? Right, you had a child. You probably found this baby somewhere in the marketplace all by himself. You picked him up and now you're claiming that it belongs to you. If you're really the mother of this child, so here's our baby. Why don't you nurse our babies as well?" And the Gemara tells us that Sarah Imenu had to prove to the whole world that she's really the mother and she has milk. And all the mothers are bringing one by one their children, making a laughingstock of her, and she nursed their babies also. No matter what, even what went well in her life was always a struggle. And then she finally has the son, Yitzchak, that she's in love with. For 37 years, she raises him, she watches him grow up, she sees him taking the mantle of leadership from her husband. And the next thing she knows, she thinks that he gets slaughtered on the altar, and she dies from the overwhelming concept of this idea that her son was almost killed on the altar. She dies. She had a good life. It was good. The good thing was, at 90 years old, she had a miracle. She started having her menstrual cycle again, and she got milk in her breast, and she's able to have a child. And she has a child. 37 years of that 127 years, maybe it was pretty good. But everything else was struggle, challenge, test, difficulty, abduction, getting in trouble, all the things. And they have to deal with Hagar and a son named stepson, whatever, a son named Yishmael who's driving her crazy. She had a lot going on. And Rashi says, oh, you know why the Torah says, Shnei Chayei Sarah, that all the years in the life of Sarah? Because they're all good. Equally good. The same Sarah that found out she's going to have a baby boy, which was maybe the happiest day of her life, until she ends up having the baby boy, it's equally as good as it was when she was taken and abducted by Avimelech. The same Sarah that was standing by the bris of the son that she davened 90 years for, and was elated with joy and simcha and everything, she says, well, that's a great day. You know, it was also a great day when Hagar made fun of me and put me down. That was also a great day in my life. How could it be? How could every day be equally as good? So we spoke a little bit about this on Shabbos, and the concept is that everything in life is really your perspective of what is good and what is bad, and what is right and what is wrong, and what is a blessing and what is a curse. And if a person looks at the life that Hashem has given them, and he sees that even in the struggles of the life that Hashem gives, therein lies the good, because that's how I'm going to grow and that's how I'm going to reach my mission and my purpose in this world, then whether I'm really celebrating a simcha or I'm really going through a struggling time in my life, they're all equally good. Because I could enjoy the simcha, that's true. And maybe all the hard work that I put into my life, that gets me to that place. But the struggle along the way is what made me who I am. It's what built me up. It's what allowed me to bring out the potential that's inside of me and become the greatest me that I could become. So even the nisyonos, even the struggles of life that God puts a person through, those are all good. Because the ultimate goal is for my benefit. Sarah Imeinu was a woman with her very deep amunah, her belief in Hashem. Again, she learned from the best. Her husband was Avraham Avinu. And she was so lofty and great in her world of understanding Hashem that when she spoke and it was contrary to what Avram spoke, so Hashem said to Avram, listen to your wife. She knows what she's talking about. She was a very lofty, spiritual woman. So therefore, with that great levels and wellsprings of amunah, of faith that she had, she was able to see even the bad was good. That's why we have the famous story in the Gemara that tells us that Rabbi Akiva was once traveling through a town, and he had with him a donkey, a chicken, and he had a candle. And it was getting late, and there was no Best Western around for him to go check into, and his Wi-Fi was down, so he couldn't book a Airbnb, so he was stuck. So where's he going to go? So he starts knocking on doors to ask if he could stay the night. Now again, Rabbi Akiva was the leader of the generation, but in those days there were no photographs, and there was no social media, and people did not know what Rabbi Akiva looked like, and he did not introduce himself as the great Rabbi Akiva. So he knocked on a door, and every door that he knocked, no, we don't take strangers. We don't have any room in our house. I'm so sorry, we can't have you right now. And everybody turned him away. By every door that closed in his face, Rabbi Akiva said, Kol the Ovid Rachmana Latav Ovid. Everything that God does is for the best. It's all good. Everything, it's all good. Kol, everything. The Ovid, that Rachmana, that the merciful one Hashem does, Latav Ovid, he does it for the good. And he didn't get upset. He didn't get mad. He didn't say, how could it be? I'm the leader of the generation. Don't they know it? No, he just walked out into the fields. He sets up tent. He sets up camp for that night in the fields. He has his donkey, his chicken, and he has his candle that he's learning the nighttime. He's learning at nighttime to be able to learn, keep himself company. He's in the midst of learning deeply into the Torah, and suddenly a gust of wind comes and blows out his candle. Now it's pitch black in the middle of the fields. He doesn't get upset. He says, Kol diavad Rahman Latav. Whatever God does, it's all good. Suddenly, a lion comes along in the middle of the night and devours his donkey. And now he has no way to travel. He has nothing to carry his load. And he doesn't get upset. He says, Kol diavad Rahman, whatever you do, Hashem, it's all good. And then comes along a fox in the middle of the night and devours his chicken. Now he has no chicken, he has no eggs, he has nothing. And Rabbi Akiva, with a big smile on his face, says, everything you do, God, it's all good. And he goes to sleep. He wakes up in the morning with the rays of the sun. I assume that he davened early in the morning, and then he went walking into the town to go see what he could muster up for that day. And he looks and he sees that the town had been pillaged and ransacked the night before by marauders, by bandits, and a great majority of the people had been killed and their houses were robbed and broken into. And he said, you see, Hashem, everything you do is for the good. If somebody would have let me into their house last night when I was asking for a place to stay, I would have been in there when the robbers would have come in. Who knows what would have happened to me? Maybe I would have got killed. If I would have had my donkey, it would have been braying in the middle of the night, and when the bandits were coming in, they would have heard the donkey, they would have caught me. If I had the candle, they would have seen the light, they would have caught me. So you blew out the candle. And if the chicken would have started cockadoodle doing and they would have heard that, they would have caught me again. So as I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything you do, it's all good. And that's the way that Sarah Imeinu lived her life. If all the days of her life were equally good, that means she never saw bad. She only saw good. It's challenging, it's hard, it doesn't even make sense to me. But Hashem's the one who's in charge. He's running the world. He never made a mistake from the beginning. He didn't make a mistake right now. He runs my life. I don't complain to Hashem when He gives me $1 million. I didn't complain to Hashem when I went to the doctor and I got a good report. I didn't complain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I got a nice job. I didn't complain when I walked my son down to the chuppah. I was very happy on those days. So if I didn't complain then, why am I complaining right now? Because it's not going my way? Says Hashem, but no, this is your way because this is what's going to make you even greater in your life. So Sarah Imeinu was such a woman who lived in that world of Kol Di'avid Rachman L'Tavavid. Everything that God does is good. And therefore, all the challenges, the abduction, the pain, the suffering, the 90 years of being barren, all the unanswered prayers, quote unquote, that she went through in her life, watching everybody else raise families and have children and grandchildren even. She had nothing. It's all good, Hashem. Whatever you do is good. And that's the message that we learn from our great matriarch, Sarah Imeinu. Now, what does it have to do with our BECHIRA, our free will? And that is because we have a choice how we're going to look at things. We have a choice how we're going to see the situation in front of us, or the person that is in front of us, or the dilemma that we're going through that is in front of us. We have a choice. How are you going to see it? Is it good or is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it emes? Is it truth? Or is it shek? Or is it falsehood? That's up to us how we're going to look at it. Now, if we have clear vision, like a Sarah, like a Rabbi Akiva, like an Avram, so then we are able to see the good in everything that's in front of us and know how to use it for our benefit. But if we're convoluted and distorted, as we're speaking about right now, so then we can no longer see things in the right way. And then when something goes not our way, we just see bad. We don't see good. We see wrong. We don't see right. We see curse. We don't see blessing. Maybe that itself is the thing that's going to bring about the greatest blessing for a person. You don't know unless you have the right perspective and you see things in the right way. So Rabbi Tatz writes today in his work the following idea. And he says over an observation that is made by many, including who he's going to quote over here, I think the Maharal, and Rav Chaim Volozhiner speaks about it in Nefesh HaChaim, and Rav Dessler speaks about this as well. And he says like this, this is entitled First Person, Second Person. And he says, before the sin, man saw himself as a spirit primarily. He's a neshama. That's how man looked at himself. I'm a neshama, I'm a soul. And the body was secondary. It was a secondary aspect of who he was. It's just a vessel in order to express the desires of the neshama. My neshama wants to perform mitzvahs in this world. Well, it needs a body to be able to do that. I can't wrap tefillin in heaven. I can only wrap it with one hand that's wrapping it around my arm. I cannot give tzedakah to a poor person if I don't have a hand and a pocket and money in the pocket. So this world facilitates the desires of my soul. And that's the way that it was. And when he thought of himself, when man thought about himself in the beginning of time, he thought of when he would say, I am this, I am that, he was thinking about his neshama. That's how it worked. The body was secondary. The neshama was primary. His body is just a vessel. It's like almost like we would call it, I think in the language of the Kabbalists, it's the clothing to the neshama, to the soul. That's all that it was. And that's why in the very beginning of the Torah, when it speaks about Adam and Chava, man and woman being naked, it says, Lo yishboshu, they were not embarrassed. Why would they be embarrassed? The body, I'm not embarrassed of my jacket. I'm not embarrassed of my shoes. So I'm not embarrassed of my body, which is just a clothing or a vessel to house my neshama. My neshama, my soul is really the main thing. And therefore, Lo yishboshu, they were not ashamed, they were not embarrassed that they were walking around naked in this world. So what happened? So the Nachash, the serpent, represents bodily cravings and sensual distractions, addressed him as a separate being speaking from a distance. Meaning when the serpent comes into the Garden of Eden, and he speaks to Adam and to Chava, he speaks to them in second person. Would you like to taste sin? I think you really like to eat this fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Hashem told you not to eat it just because he's worried that you're going to become powerful like him, but you really should eat it. It's good for you. So, man is the ani, who I am, is my neshama. And the nachash, which is the manifestation of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is talking in second person. So you can separate between me and something that's outside of me. I'm not the serpent. He's some kind of force in the world that's trying to introduce negative drives and the like into me. That's not me. I'm my soul. My soul wants to be close to Hashem, and wants to do mitzvahs, and wants to be pure. However, says Rabbi Tatz, after the sin, meaning after they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then the body becomes the primary in consciousness. It's no longer am I a neshama, only am I a soul. That's who I really am. My body now becomes almost like a shield, like a covering to my soul. And instead of seeing my neshama, I end up seeing my body instead. Now, when the body and its senses speak, they speak from within in the first person, which means when I hear my voice inside of me talking, saying I want certain things, it's no longer the voice of the neshama that's speaking. It is the voice of the body and the drives that come along with it that are speaking. And he says, it may be humiliating to acknowledge this, but there's no denying it. If a delicious opportunity tempts the senses, it always speaks in the first person. Oh, I would like to taste that. Yeah, you already had like a huge meal, and you already had like the nuts and some of the candy, whatever was on the table, and then they bring out the big piece of cake. And now you really can't breathe so well by this point. You're stuffed to the gills, and suddenly you say, oh, wow, I really want that cake. Do you, your neshama, really wants that cake? So that's what he's saying. It's not you. And the conscious, when it speaks at all, mean the conscience meaning the soul of man. When it speaks, if it speaks, it's always in second person. No. You're so full already. You don't really want that. And when it comes to sinful behavior, the I inside of me, which is now my body speaking, and those senses and those drives and desires, saying, oh, I really like to do that. And the soul, if you're lucky, the soul will speak up and say, no. You know that you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. We don't do those kind of things. So this is a difference between before the sin and after the sin. I was my soul. After the sin, my body and the drives, the physical drives, that is connected to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination, that takes over my thought process, and that talks as if it's me, and my neshama is talking from a distance, trying to be like the voice of reason, telling me not to do such a thing. So he goes on and he says that the locus of man's awareness, locus I think is the place of man's awareness of self has moved from the mind to the body. How do I see myself? So he says, it used to be it was the self. My neshama saw who I am, but now it's a body. Awareness of the self began as godly, meaning when you used to say ani, I, it was which I is like the neshama, the soul, and then it became conflated. When man was originally I, he conflated his identity with Hashem, which means I am completely subservient to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's who I am, and that was where man's consciousness resided. Now the I speaks from a lower place, meaning that who I really am is we have no idea anymore. And when I hear the word I, it's not coming from a heightened awareness of consciousness, of holiness, of sanctity, of godliness. It's coming from a darker place, which is the Yetzer Hara, which is the desires areas of a person's life. So if that's the case, so then we're completely distorted in knowing who we are and what we really want. Because I really want what my soul wants, because that's my godliness. And that's my ticket to getting close to Hashem. I really don't want what the negative forces of the world are trying to convince me that I do want. But since that I hear the voice in my head as me, I think that is what I want. And that becomes a very great confusion in a person's life. And he goes on to explain, he quotes a Gemara. And the Gemara says over there that the Yetzer Hara has different names. One of the names that the Yetzer Hara, that the inclination is referred to as, is Tzafoni. He's phony now, but it's Tzafoni. Tzafon means the hidden one. He's hidden deep in man's psyche and very difficult to discover. Now, what Rabbi Tatz is going to say over here is that, what does that mean? We just described right now that when you hear the voice, I want this, I want that, that's really your Yetzer Hara. So, if anything, it's hard to discover your neshama, that's tucked away somewhere. Hopefully we'll find it one day. But the Yetzer Hara, the inclination, that's like at the forefront. And yet Chazal, the sages, are telling us that no, the Yetzer Hara is Tzafoni, it is hidden deep in man's psyche, very difficult to discover. What does that mean? So he says it's difficult to understand what they're saying. Most people would testify that the force that tempts them is very apparent. There's a force that is pulling me in one direction. It speaks from the first moment of wakefulness and is hardly sign of anything. I wake up in the morning, I'll go back to sleep. I want to go back. I'm so tired. I just want to go back to sleep. Right away, you don't even have a second in this world, and already the Yetzer Hara is telling me, I want to go back to sleep. You know, it's so cold outside. It's so early. Now the clock's changed. It's so dark in the morning. Really, I should just stay in bed. I'll get up later. I'll take care of it later. You know, someone needs me to do something. They says, I'm too tired today. This guy, I did him favors before. He doesn't even do any favors back for me. Why waste my time? So the voice is talking constantly. The cravings and hungers of the sensual side of man are all too apparent. And they speak stridently and incessantly all the time. I want this, I want that. Amazon is the Yetzer Hara. Yeah, they have the algorithm that is going on, keeping track of everything you ever bought for the last 10 years of your life. They have they're tracking all of your buying habits and the like, and they come to you every day, and they see you get on your account. Oh, you know what? You need this. You're like, oh, I do need that. And you know what? I do need a new potato peeler that has a special cushion over there, so my hands are not going to get brittle when I peel it. I do need that. It's really important. You know, people that bought this, you go to buy one thing. A lot of people buy this thing also. I think you could use that too. Oh, really? That's a good idea. What's another 1996? What's the big deal? I could get that also. So the voice is always there, and it doesn't leave us alone. So it would seem then that there really is no problem at all in locating the Yetzer Hara. He's right there in front of your face. He's actually the voice that you hear in your head all the time. So what do Chazal mean when they say over here that he's really tzafoni, he's really hidden? So what is meant here is the dark side of man's nature has so thoroughly taken over that one seeks it and imagines that he found it easily, it, meaning the dark side, the Yetzer Hara, is actually the one that is doing the searching to find itself. And he's going to explain. The voice that represents itself as the voice of balance and reasonable is his. He has taken over the innate sense of identity and almost entirely. Meaning, when I try to be more honest with myself, and I try to catch the things that I'm doing wrong, and I try to see what is really going on, even that is not my neshama. Even that's the Yetzer Hara convincing me and using itself to be able to reveal itself to man. He's going to explain deeper. It's hard to understand. Yeah?
Voice of the neshama. What is the voice of the neshama?
All good. Only wants to do the good. True good. True good. God's will. And we're saying that voice is very distant. It's very muffled. We don't hear it on a very regular basis. Even when we do hear it, it's like, it's like in the distant.
Sounds like the opposite of what you're telling us. That's distant, and the other one's very prevalent, not so good.
Right. Exactly. So then what does it mean? So that's what he's saying over here. It's concealing itself in such a way that it's making you think that it's you who is discovering this thing that you want to do, meaning you, that it's your real, true, pure essence. But he's going to give a good parable over here. Maybe we'll let him speak. We'll let him see the parable, and then we'll understand a little bit better. And he says over here, that is how treacherously he's hidden, present in full view, masquerading as the one seeking him out. He's right there, but he hides himself so that you don't realize that it's him that's doing what he's doing. So listen to the parable that he gives over here. He says that one of the modern sages, they didn't say who it was, in dark humor said over the following parable to understand what the Yetzer Hara has done to a person. And he asked the following question: what's the right way to rob a bank? Now, you have rabbinical guidance over here. If you want to rob a bank, how should you rob a bank? So you have a choice. Should you enter into the bank with a mask and a weapon and force the money out of the teller over there? So he says, no, that's not sensible, because maybe they're going to catch you, maybe they're going to get you. You don't want to do it that way. The correct method to rob a bank, if anybody wants to rob a bank today, is to make an appointment with the manager. You enter his office, you gag and you bind him, you lock him up in the closet, and then you sit at his desk and you run the bank. You become the manager. You push him out of the way and you become the bank manager, and then you have the keys to all the safes. You have all the computers telling you how much money is in the bank, where it's all located. You're going to walk out at the end of the day because you're the manager. You close up the bank, you leave at the end of the day, you take the money with you, and you run. That's how it works. What? Yeah, so he says like this. This is really what took place when man ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that is what's been done to the higher self, which is the neshama, the soul of a person. It's been hijacked by the Yetzer Hara. The neshama, my higher self, who I really am, it was hijacked by the Yetzer Hara, is now making this in the decisions in its name. Meaning, when I want to make a good decision, and I think that I'm really making a good decision, but I'm really not making a good decision, but I think that I am, because I hear this voice saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. It is the Yetzer Hara, who's the robber, who came in and gagged my neshama, threw him down and put him away, and now he's sitting in the driver's seat, and he's pretending to be me. He's pretending to be the bank manager. So he's running the show, and I fall for it every single time. Because I can't hear the voice of my soul anymore. So what passes for the self is a motley assembly of vested interests and ulterior motives. Meaning, I want this. That's not what you really want. Again, who you really are is the soul. That's not what your soul really wants. But you hear the voice saying, I do want this, and 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 I'm convinced that I do, but really I don't. The real self is securely bound and gagged, uttering no more, perhaps then an occasional muffled groan. You can't hear the neshama. You can't hear it saying what it really wants. It's got tape over its mouth. Some once in a while you have a little bit of guilt for something that you're doing. That's the neshama trying to break free. But it doesn't work. So says Rav Tatz, how he's explaining it over here is that the reason that we are distorted in the way that we see things is because what eyes are we seeing out of? We're not seeing out of the eyes of our neshama. We're seeing the world out of the eyes of our Yetzer Hara, which is the base, lowly desires and drives that a person has, which is connected very deeply to the body and goes away from the power of the soul. So that's why we're just trying to connect it to this parsha. That's why when something doesn't go my way, if I'm living in an earthly world and I'm an earthly being and everything is about that, if it's not good, then it's not enjoyable, it's not pleasurable. I don't want to have to go through this. So then that's the physical reaction to the challenge that I'm going through in this world. But if I would be a more spiritually inclined being, then I would realize that whatever it is that Hashem is putting me through is actually the greatest thing for my neshama, which is really who I am. If the point of my soul is to grow in this world, right? Why did Hashem not leave us in heaven? Why did He bring our souls down to this world in the first place? It's much easier up there. It's safe. It's comfortable. You're together with Hashem. There's no challenges. You're only surrounded by angels. It's a great world. But Hashem says that's not the meaning of life. The meaning of life it's not the port of Ayarta. That's not the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to work hard. The meaning of life is to struggle and to go through challenges. You take a hike. You could walk the straight path. It's pleasurable, but you're not going to get the heart rate going up, and the sweat's not going to start breaking until you actually go up the incline. Until you go up the incline of life, you're not sweating and you're not growing and you're not using your muscles. So says Hashem, if I leave you up here, there's no growth. There's no expansion. There's no elevation of your neshama. There's no incline. So I'm going to send you down to the world. It's an uphill battle all the time. But that's what's going to make you strong, and that's what makes you healthy, and that's what gets the blood pumping, and that's what gets the endorphins going, and that's what makes you who you are. So Sari Imenu sat back at the end of 127 years, and the Torah testifies about her. All of her days were equally good. Were they? No, not the way that we see them. They were equally bad, if you ask us. But she said, Hashem, whatever you do, it's all good. Because if you're testing me, that's the best thing in the world. You're making me greater. I want to become great. My neshama is the main thing in my life, and that's how I'm going to ascend the ladder of spiritual success. So we don't look for challenges, and we don't ask Hashem to challenge us. That's the famous story in the Gemara that King David asked Hashem. He said, Hashem, why don't you put my name in the Shemona Esrei also? Why does it only say that you're the God of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? I think I was a pretty great person. Also, maybe you should put God of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Dovid. And the Gemara says that Hashem responded to Dovid HaMelech, King David. It's because I put them through the penultimate of tests in this world, and they all passed with flying colors. Each one had their own challenges in life, and they passed. And as a result, they will go down in history as being called, it'll be the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, because of the great levels that they reached. You, David, as great as you are, you never passed the test that was on proportion with there. And therefore I cannot put you in the Shemona Esrei. So David said, so no, try me. Give me a test that's on par with theirs, and I'll pass. And God told him, I never gave you that test because I know that you can't pass that test. So don't ask me to do something that I don't want to do to you. And David said, try me. Let's see if I do it. If I do it, it's a win-win. Now you'll see how great I really am, and you'll put me into the Shemona Esrei. If I lose, which I'm not going to, so let's not worry about it. So God told them, I'm going to test you in something that you will not be able to overcome, and sadly, it will be part of your downfall and leave you a blemish on in your reputation throughout history. And the Gemara says that at that point, he revealed to him this beautiful woman, Bathsheba, and although that the Gemara says that whoever says that King David sinned with her, they don't know what they're talking about, but because that it looked like it was a sin, because it looked like he did something he should not have done, that was the tarnish and the blemish on his reputation. And Hashem told him, I told you, you're not going to pass the test. And the Gemara says over there, La'olam, a person should never ever ask for a test, because Hashem, He's giving us enough. He knows what He's doing. So we don't ask. So we don't ask, but we see that we live in a world of challenges and a world of tests. And if we'll have the right perspective and we'll realize what is only here for our benefit, then Kulan Shavin Lataiva will say, oh, God, everything you do is so good. It hurts. It's so good, Hashem. Everything you do is for the best. Yes?
Are you suggesting that Dovid's burial was, did he have the thought? He didn't actually,
No, he did certain things. But again, it was all within the realm of halacha. He didn't break the law. But it looked like he did. And as a result of that, people got the wrong idea. And for that, he was punished.
Recognize the tests. We shouldn't wait for them.
Yes, we're going through tests all the time. And when we recognize it, then we can confront it and we can overcome.
Wasn't Moses great?
Yeah,
Yes.
That he could, other than if he didn't strike the rock,
Right.
he probably would have been in the Shemona.
Yeah, well, he didn't. It's interesting. He didn't ask. He didn't ask. Meaning, these are our forefathers. That's the point. The three patriarchs are our forefathers, and they're like the foundational stone, so to speak, of our nation. Okay, so next week I hope that I'll find the time to prepare properly, and we'll go into a little bit more of the life of Avram Avinu.